The location of Elden Ring is the lands between a made-up continent ruled by a number of demigods.
The immortal Queen Marika, who served as the guardian of the Elden Ring, a potent force that took the form of the physical notion of order, had previously been in charge of it. Following Marika's eventual destruction of the Elden Ring and disappearance, a conflict known as the Shattering erupted between her demigod children for fragments of the ring. Each demigod carries a great rune, a piece of the ring that has the power to corrupt them. To fix the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord, the player must travel the realm as one of the Tarnished.
In this video, we'll talk about the most misleading item in the game ever since its new update.
But before we get into it, do me a favor and smash the like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button for notifications whenever a new video is published. A 2022 action role-playing game called Elden Ring was created by From Software and released by Bandai Namco Entertainment. Hidetaka Miyazaki was the director and fantasy author George R.R. Martin who created the world. On February 25th, it became available for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S. There are crafting mechanics in the game that need resources to create goods. The player needs the crafting recipe for the item in order to create it.
Cookbooks are collectibles that can be found all over the world and contain recipes.
Defeating monsters, exploring the game's world, or conducting a trade with a merchant NPC are all ways to get materials. Poison darts, exploding pots, and consumables that temporarily boost the player's power are just a few examples of the products that can be made.
So what is the most misleading item in the game? Opaline Hardtier.
Well, games from Software are known for being cryptic, but occasionally it's just a bug. Consider the Opaline Hardtier, a tiny bullet point in the massive PvP-focused Elden Ring patch released on Tuesday. You receive a fresh recipe to add to your flask of wondrous physic after fighting the putrid tree avatar in Caelid. Not only did I remember this fight well because it was a hard-won victory over Rot, but also because Opaline Hardtier's reward description made some pretty amazing promises. It stated, temporarily boosts all damage negations in physique. Players that tested the item discovered that, for whatever reason, the tear only temporarily neutralized elemental damage, which, although useful, is only a little improvement over the initially anticipated all-purpose usage. While some claimed to employ Opaline's misrepresented benefits, many others dismissed it as useless. But the balance has been restored with patch 1.06.
The Opaline Hardtier now boosts physical damage negation,
thanks to a glitch that was fixed, according to the patch notes.
More specifically, the Opaline offers 10% damage negation in addition to elemental negation following testing. If you're smart, the chances here are really darn good.
PvP users point out, for instance, that you could pair the Hardtier with the Dragon Crest Greatshield Talisman, which lowers physical damage by 20%, and Radiant Baldaquin's Blessing, which offers 35% damage negation in addition to Bull Goat Armor, for a total resistance of reportedly 72.8%.
Why stop with that?
You could probably pop some boiled crab for that wonderful 20% physical resistance.
Your oyster is the world, my brothers in grace. But are you somehow looking for the top Elden Ring items to use as a starting point?
So if this is your first From Software game, the lands between is a difficult area to explore.
But it's really simple to overlook important details in the beginning. If you do,
you'll be at a serious disadvantage. These divine weapons, which range from the strongest arcane weapons to the best godly weapons, move the Tarnished closer to the Elden Throne.
However, some of the game's weapons entirely miss their target. So after tackling the most misleading item in the Elden Ring, let us now talk about a few of Elden Ring items you should avoid. Bastard Stars. This is not a terrible weapon by any means. In fact, Bastard Stars is undoubted of the best-looking weapons in the game. The Wing of Estelle, however, renders it unnecessary.
The latter features a wider range of moves in addition to the same incredible Ash of War. The Bastard Stars appear to be carved from the planetary orbs Estelle was created out of and are only attainable after slaying Estelle, the natural born of the void. The major question is whether obtaining this weapon is worthwhile compared to simply going to get the Wing of Estelle, which doesn't require killing an intergalactic entity.
Axe of Godfrey.
The Axe of Godfrey is one remembrance weapon you should stay away from even though it is held by an unquestionably difficult boss. It's simply one of those things where when the boss uses it, it seems so strong, but when it's in your hands, it's just a shell of what it once was. The Axe of Godfrey is obviously a strength weapon, yet it is nonetheless terribly sluggish and heavy. When using it, you frequently stumble, and the poor Tarnished needs all of his might just to swing it.
If you were to get a hit, your enemies would have already dealt you a fatal blow. The Earthshaker Earthshaker Ash of War by Hoara Lu is a wiser option. Serpent Hunter, a From Software game, wouldn't be complete without an occasional gimmicky fight. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy's boss battle, is definitely the gimmick to end all gimmicks. The lowly Tarnished receives a weapon at the start of Rykard's boss arena, much like Yorm the Giant did in Dark Souls 3. The Serpent Hunter weapon causes a whirlwind of wind blades to erupt toward the monster, causing tremendous damage. However, this weapon's deadly potential ends when the battle does. When utilized in any other combat, nothing extraordinary actually occurs, because once Rykard is destroyed, the Serpent Strength Hunters is as well. Torch. Although using a torch as a weapon might not be your first thought, the game does offer a wide variety of torches with various capabilities. Although Trina's Torch and the Beast Repellent Torch are two of the most beneficial, you won't get very far if your primary weapon is a standard torch. The Tarnished should just use the torch in the manner for which it was intended, which is the key lesson to be learned from this. But even so, when making a trip to a dark cave, a lantern is preferred to a torch. Torch Pole. The torch pole is a hybrid weapon that combines a torch with a spear. It is primarily used by the hooded guards of Stormvale Castle. Both have their purposes, but the torch pole does not deal the massive damage you were expecting for. As you might have guessed, the inclusion of light is the single, distinctive feature of this weapon. Finding a different spear or polearm and a different torch would be preferable. Forked Hatchet. The dungeon imps employ this odd-looking small hand axe. Although there are numerous weapons that create bleeding, there is really no need to employ this over a more powerful weapon. It is yet another weapon that sacrifices power for some sort of blood loss buildup effect. Unless you want to roam the streets dressed as an imp, I suppose. Not much can be said about this weapon that hasn't previously been stated about others. It is merely an early game thing that swiftly falls behind in almost every category and does little to make up for that. Compared to the Forked Hatchet, the Ice Rind Hatchet is more effective. The Rivers of Blood Katana or Eleonora's Poleblade are two additional bleed weapons you might choose. Still, you shouldn't use the Forked Hatchet until the very end of the game. The Flail. Here is a gimmick weapon that is as basic as they come. It is located in a chariot in the Gatefront ruins quite early in the game. This weapon's baseline damage is quite low, its strength and skill scaling is quite poor, and its spinning chain skill is fairly pathetic. The flail is simply spun around in front of you. You receive minimal protection from it because the range is poor, and it isn't very powerful. The basic old flail is somewhat of a joke because pretty much every other flail in the game does the same function better. Of course, you can always update this to increase its scaling and replace the ashes with something better. Still, at the end of the day, you've got a fairly slow weapon that doesn't really work with too many designs. It's hardly the worst weapon ever, but we don't really need it for anything. It is a weapon that is just there. Nearly all of the weapons in this game have the potential to be quite powerful if you take the time to modify them, thanks to the new Ashes of War system, which makes it simple to change out affinities and give weapons more strength or better skills. Therefore, the worst weapon is really only a matter of personal preference. What do you think of the Opaline Hard Tier? Was it a worthy item to have? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Before leaving, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications on our future content. With that being said, see you in the next one.